Welcome back to the bus build. So we're still working on the auxiliary fuel tank. It's going to go up behind this side skirt. You saw that on the previous video. So what I've done here, this is my surround. This one is from a Jeep CJ. So it's going to go right here. We'll drill out and make sure everything slides in where I want it to. I already took measurements from up behind the skirt, so I know that this is where I want it regarding the length of my filler hoses and where the tank is going to sit up behind here. So I'm going to drop the tank about 5 inches from this rivet line to make sure that it stays low enough that I have a downward slope into the tank. It should work out okay, I certainly hope. I'm going to measure that again and make sure I'm right. When you're trying to figure out how to make radius corners, hole saws are great ways to do it. So what I did here, I took this hole saw and just checked it against the framework here just to make sure that it was going to be about right, and it's a good fit. It's a good fit. So now that I've got that drawn in there, the way we do this, I'm going to take this and line it up with the outer edges of this, right about like that. Okay, and take my Sharpie, go straight in here, and just draw a circle. That should give me my center point somewhere in there. I'm going to do the same thing over here. There we go, that's where I want it. Now here, I'm going to go straight in. There we go. Okay, so I should be able to drill my marker hole. I'm going to drill the 4 points with the hole saw and then cut out the difference with a cutoff wheel. There we have this part. So it's not the cleanest cut in the world, but that's okay. It's going to be covered by the trim ring. So we get some paint on there just to make sure things don't rust, but that slides in right where I wanted it to. It's even sitting pretty much vertical in there. So normally this would be attached with a few metal screws, and I might consider doing that, but I think probably what I'll end up doing is just putting on with some rivets, just because the rest of this bus uses those anyway. So yeah. 4 rivets or 4 screws and we're done on this part. And then I've got my filler neck that'll go in from the back coming up that direction. So I think the plan's going to be, and this will be a little bit more complicated just because there's not a lot of room to work back there. I may need to put the connections on the tank before I put it up into position, but I'm kind of hoping I don't have to. I tried to put all the hookup points toward the back if at all possible. But the things that are going on the top of the tank are going to be the interchange between this and the primary tank, the filler, and the vent. And then everything else is going to be down underneath, so it should be a bit easier to connect to. We'll move on. All right, so this one doesn't need any sealant behind it. Let's put some paint on there. Go ahead and drop that in because I want to make sure these all line up the way they're supposed to. I'm just going to go ahead and put all 4 rivets in here. And then we'll lock them all in from there. There's 2, 3, and 4. Okay. There we are. we go. New filler surround. I'll get back with you when it's time to mount the tank. This time we're going to switch gears just a little bit. So what I've got here, this is a roughly 40-gallon freshwater tank. This one doesn't have any fittings on it. I went ahead and had them just make the tank itself. I'm going to put the fittings on myself. So the deal is, I want to be able to collect environmental water to help extend my stays. Now I figure I've got a pretty long bus here. There's a lot of roof real estate that I can work with. So if I can collect rainwater, that'd be ideal. Now on top of it, I want to be able to collect from streams or ponds or other things that might have a usable water source that may need to be purified. The other thing that came to mind was, as I go traveling with this setup, I want to be able to kind of pick up water from sites that may not want me to be there long term. So like for instance, I remember hearing somewhere that some of the truck stops out there might actually have a water fill point near some of the fuel pumps. So I wanted to be able to make use of something like that. But obviously I'm not going to sit there long enough to fill an 80-gallon water tank. So I figure if I can put 20 gallons or something in while I'm fueling, that might give me a little bit of ability to extend my stays and extend my trips without having to go find places to pick up fresh water like campgrounds and things like that. I know the other problem with working with a converted school bus is there are definitely campgrounds out there that just don't want you around. So I can't necessarily guarantee that I'll be able to just pull into a KOA or something and fill up. So anyway, what I'm going to do with this is going to go on the driver's side right here, down behind the propane cylinders up in this space here. So the deal is it's a relatively big space up in there. Let's see if I can hold this up for you so you can actually see it. But the deal is, this should fit, right in there, no problem. So I can push this all the way forward up to the point where that new sheet metal is up there. This is narrow enough side to side that it will fit just fine inside that cavity, and it sits really high up on top. So generally speaking, what I'm going to do, what I haven't quite decided yet is how to collect the rainwater. But I think what I'm going to try to do is build a PVC vertical coming down the back here, something relatively large, like maybe even a 4-inch. You can't see what I'm doing. Let me see here. There we go. Now you can see it. So I'm going to see if I can put maybe even a 4-inch PVC running down the back here as a catchment point and a first pass filtration system. So what it'll have is a removable cap on the bottom of it that I can take off and dump out for any of the sediment that might end up on there. And my plan is to put a spigot partway up on the bottom. So if I end up using just the angled portion of the back here, I may go ahead and put it right about there somewhere, so I can collect sediment underneath it and not have to worry about it flowing into the tank. And then I can put a hose on between that spigot and one down here right below the rub rail where the tank will be. That should give me the ability to transfer water directly into this tank without having to worry about a downspout. So I'm going to put, I'm going to put some guttering across the back up there. Make sure you can see what I see. Right across up the top there, and I'm going to go right up here somewhere and put another set, like probably right above where those flutes are for over the old windows. But I'll see what I can do about putting that in right across the rivet line if I can do it. That should clean up that line a little bit too. But anyway, hope is I'll be able to collect rainwater from that. So then on top of it, what we'll do, let me push you back down here. Up front, so the tank should come up to right about where that seam is, if I'm not mistaken. So then I'll run some PEX forward up to where the door is for the propane up here. And that should give me the ability to put another attachment point up there that I can then draw water out of. And let me show you what those look like. So these are the flange fittings that I got to connect the hoses to. So they've obviously got a flange on them. You've got I believe that's a 3/4 NPT fitting on the back. And I can just put this right up against the bus. So this one back here will probably go somewhere right here behind the seam. And then the one up front, I'll probably attach it somewhere up here, down low enough that it's below where the bottom of the tank is going to be. So that way it's easy to get this, and I can then pump it through a filtration system and go directly into my primary tank. So as was true with the fuel tank that I built, or more specifically I built a mount for, I'm doing the same kind of mount here. So what I've got is some 1.5" angle. I went ahead and had this cut down just for ease of shipping since I got this mail order, but yeah, what I'm going to do is make a cradle around the top of the tank and one around the bottom of the tank, and then use some flat stock extending down the sides. Let me see if you can actually see what I'm looking at here. Yeah, I think so. Extending down the sides and allowing me to bolt the two frames together. And then I should have enough extra here that I can put some flanges sticking out the top so I can then mount it to the underside of the bus superstructure. For the fittings, what I've got are these Uniseal adapters. See if you can see it. So I got some that are 1" ID. This should be perfect for 3/4 PVC. So my goal here, I'm going to take one of these and drop a piece of angle iron in place just to show you. So I'm going to put one on each end. The one on the back end is going to go up near the top, and the one on the front end is going to go near the bottom. So obviously one fitting on this side, one fitting over there on the other side. But the way it's going to work, I'm going to take this and kind of put it up here, right about there. Another way you could potentially do this, and I might consider this as an option, is to put your fitting in the top of the tank. So in my case, I would need to lower the tank down far enough away from the superstructure that I can actually put some plumbing up in there, but I think I can make that happen. It shouldn't be too bad. So anyway, I might give that a try. On the other side though, I should be able to put one relatively low, or I might be able to put one up underneath. And again, same reason. Since I'm going to be using this as kind of a drain for the tank anyway, it kind of makes sense to put it as low as possible. So we'll see. I'm going to build the framework first just so I know what I'm dealing with, because obviously the problem with that is I have to come down that far. That's pretty far down in the tank. I don't like that. I could potentially make this far enough out when I assemble it to be able to clear this fitting, which would allow me to push this that high, but that's still, you know, a good 1.5" below the top of the tank, and I don't love that when it comes time to collect water. So I think I'm going to try to go right up in the top in the corner, and I can run the plumbing across. So again, it should be doable. I've got a lot more side curtain over there than I have height in the tank. Let's give it a try. So for those of you who have watched the video about me installing a fuel tank, an auxiliary tank in this bus, I made a mount for it very similarly to this one. So what we're starting with, I've got some 1.5" angle iron here. These are 4-foot lengths. It just turns out that my tank is right at 4 feet, so I don't have to cut these down at all. So I'm just going to take a measurement here between. We have 18 1/4. Just want to make sure we're about even. 18 1/4. Okay. So I'm going to cut two pieces, 18 1/4. Now I should be able to cut all 4 of these because the underside of the tank should be obviously the same dimensions. So let's go ahead and cut 4 at 18 1/4. I'll just hope that it's right. I've got some extra angle iron here I can make use of. Alright, well here we have it so far. So I've got my two 18 1/4 pieces cut for the short sides of the tank here. Again, we're 4 feet long along the length of the tank. Just like with the fuel tank, I didn't bother mitering these corners. It's all going to be hidden up behind the side of the bus, so this is all structural. It doesn't need to be pretty. But generally speaking, I think we got it. So what I did, I cut a bunch of these that are about 2 inches long. So these are going to serve a couple of different purposes. On the top frame here, let me get these out of the way. On the top frame I need 4 mounts. So 2 mounting points somewhere out near the end here, and then 2 about 1/4 of the way in on the other side, just because of the way the C-channels line up under the bus. So what I'm going to do, we'll put a couple of these out here wherever it is that this will line up. So once I get the top frame put together, I'll put it up under the bus, mark out where these need to be, and then weld them on each side. And then here I was just kind of using up leftover material, so with the clamp on the chop saw being what it is, this is kind of the smallest leftover piece that I could do. So I'm going to go ahead and put these wherever they need to go to line up with the other C-channel. So there are 2 cross channels up under the bus that I'll be attaching to. I'll show you what those are here in just a minute. So these are going to go here, 1 on each side. Then I've got some extras here. So for holding the frames together, there will be a top and a bottom frame that look identical. The bottom frame obviously will cup up from underneath. Then I've got this 2" by 1/8" bar that'll go along the sides of the tank in 4 points. So 1 here, 1 on the other side, and then a couple over here, making sure that they stay away from the original, the upper mounts. So the way I'm going to make that work, for those of you who haven't watched the fuel tank video, I'm going to take these. If this was now the bottom frame, these are going to go here, oriented like that. So that way I can bring the strap along the side of the tank all the way down here and run a bolt through the bottom of it. There will be 4 of those. That makes it really easy to install and remove the tank. So that way if I ever have a problem with it, if I need to pull it out, replace it, it'll be a lot easier to make that happen. Then we've got our plumbing. So these are the Uniseal bulkhead fittings. So I got the 1" like I mentioned earlier. I think what I've decided, I'm going to go ahead and put one in the top of the tank here in the corner, and then the other one will go in the bottom of the tank, either right below this point or over here. I'd like to go catty corner. That way it kind of gets a good cross flow in the tank. Hopefully it keeps any kind of sediment that might build up in here to a minimum. But yeah, we'll see how that turns out. What I may end up doing is this one might go over here, which is inboard on the bus. Just because in the back here I may end up deciding to put my my plumbing back here on the back instead of around the side. So that'll be a little easier to make this particular corner work. But anyway, if that's true, then I'll put the other one out here underneath at that corner. That should give me the ability to put my front drain fitting out here someplace, somewhere in that general zone. That'll make it a lot easier for me to then attach to it and filter the water as it comes out. So let me get these welded up and I'll show you what we get. You know, I really should have done this before I put that cover over this hole in the side of the bus. It's a lot easier to get in when there's a big opening there. Anyway, we are now under the back corner of the bus. There's the exhaust pipe running through. So the tank is going to sit right up here in the middle. So right in front of that rear cross member, or that support going out to the outside of the bumper. And it's going to fill up this space right up in here. So what we have, let's see if I can show you here. So right up top, this one is a piece of C-channel. These are enclosed, so I don't want to mount to them, but I can mount to this. So that's one. Then I've also got one right up here. This one is C-channel I can mount to. And I think that's it. That one might be as well. I think 2 of these are. Let me check. Okay. So yes, that one's C-channel. So is the one immediately behind it. Now I don't want to put mounts that close together if I can avoid it, but I think that's what I'm stuck with. So what we're going to do, I'm going to try to go far enough forward with the tank that I can mount it to this channel right here, this one right behind my framework here. That gives me the ability to go ahead and put my outlet right down here, really close to the bottom in the new sheet metal. That should work pretty nicely. So plan is we're going to bolt into this one, and then I'm going to go as far down as I can, that one, not this one, but the one behind it, and see if I can mount into that. So what I've got down here, this is my upper frame, and I'm just going to hold that up into position, just try to do some mental gymnastics and get my marking pen to where I need it. So one thing I do know, this one here on the end is going to be as close to the front of the angle iron as I can make it. So that should be easy to do. Then I just need to figure out the distance for that one. And by rights, now that I've got everything down here, all I needed to do was measure it. So I'm going to go grab the tape measure and just take a measurement between that back C-channel and this front C-channel. Since the front one's going to go right at the corner here, that'll make it really easy to put these in position. Then I can weld on the top 4 mounts, the ones that are going to come off the side, and actually mount it to the bus. And once those are done, then I can put the strapping in place, working around it. Alright, I got all the welding done. So this is the top frame sitting upside down here. I hope I got these mostly straight. Looks like these don't quite line up, but that's okay. I don't care. So, top frame. Let's get the tank in here. There we go. And then the bottom frame. So when I welded these on, I went ahead and clamped them just to make sure everything lined up the way I wanted it to. So as you can see, the straps from the top line up just fine with this bottom section. And it looks like it's going to do fine. So the reason I'm doing this is because I want to drill through these as they sit. So that way I know my bolt holes will line up. This one is not going to get anything on the underside of the tank. So generally speaking, I might put a, yeah, you know those stick-on monitors you can put on the bottom of your holding tanks? I might choose to put one of those on at some point, but for now, this is just going to be open to ground. Again, this will only be used in warm weather, so I don't need to worry about keeping it warm. So we'll just work on this. I need to drill these out, get them to line up, and then I can take this all apart and paint it. I do need to drill the mounting holes into the bus, but I think I'm going to go ahead and get the paint done while the temperature is with me. I can always do the drilling later. And there we have it. So I went ahead and drilled all the holes on the mounts over here, so this can bolt together now. I'm just going to use 1/4-inch bolts on this one. Again, I'm not expecting it to be overly heavy. I'll use grade 8, but I don't think I need to drill it out further than that. On the fuel cell, I ran a little bit higher than that just because I know the tank itself is a little bit heavier, and I guess it's holding about the same weight overall, but I just didn't want the fuel cell to come loose potentially. So this one, everything's drilled and ready to go. I don't know if you can see it over here, but I went ahead and marked my first hole on the tank. So this one is going to be where the output goes, and then the other one will be underneath, right in this corner, so up underneath that side. So I'll go ahead and mark that part of the tank as well. Then I can get painting this. I hope you can see some of this. I wanted to show you what I've done really quick. So here we are under the side of the bus. So this is the upper frame for this holding tank. I've got it mounted on some little pieces of 3-inch U-channel aluminum, just what I had, and I mounted it into the hat channels that you see up above there. So what we've got, it's sitting up pretty high. I hope you can see where it hangs down to. It's right there. So just below the bottom of the frame. So it's tucked up pretty nice up in here. And then what I did, up top here above this corner, I went ahead and held the drill horizontal right above it and punched a hole in the side skirt. And then over here on this side, I went and lined myself up with a spot over here below the tank where I want to mount the valve, and then came straight out with the drill and drilled another hole. Okay, what we have here, I've got the upper frame up inside. You saw that a little while ago. And I've got 2 holes drilled in the side of the bus. We got this one here up at the top. This is sitting right over the intake corner, so it's going to go in and straight down into the tank. Then I've got one over here that's a little bit further out. The tank only comes over to about where this seam is, maybe a little bit further. So this one is sitting over further, but I did that on purpose because I've got that framework back behind that side curtain where I built the support for the propane tanks. So I'm going to use that to help support the outflow valve. So generally speaking, I need to make sure that I don't have water just draining out of this all the time, and I don't really trust just these little caps on here to actually hold this watertight. So I went ahead and put a ball valve in, or at least I have one to install. So what I'm going to do is run the plumbing out from the bottom of the tank over, install a ball valve, and then come straight out to this spot right here where I'll put another one of these flanges. So what I need to do now is drill a 1 3/4 hole right at this spot to clear this. And then once this is sitting where I want it to, right about there, then I can drill the mark and drill the 3 holes around it. Those will be 3/16, giving me the ability to put some bolts through and hold that in place. I'll probably put the fitting on the back of this. This is going to be a PEX fitting, so that way I can tighten this down as much as I need to, and the PEX I can obviously put on while this is in the bus. I don't have to put it on ahead of time. So yeah, we'll see if we can drill some holes. There we have it. So everything's drilled out. Let me see if I can find down here. I left a can of spray paint. Put a little primer on here, and we're ready to put the fittings in. So I know it's been only a few seconds since you saw the earlier parts of this video. It's been a couple of weeks, maybe longer, since I was working on this, but here's our auxiliary fuel tank. What I've got here come on. This is a 100 watt thermostatic heating pad designed to be used on an RV holding tank. So why am I putting it on the bottom of this fuel cell? Well, I figure the biggest disadvantage to diesel fuel is the fact that it tends to gel up in cold weather. Now, what I'm looking at, that is perfect. Yeah, okay. So what I'm looking at here is I wanted the ability to heat up at least this secondary fuel tank. So my hydronic heater, which will be run off of one of these outlets down here on the sump, will be able to preheat the engine, and I also have the ability to transfer fuel back and forth between this tank and the main tank up underneath the bus. Now I figure if I put some anti-gel in the fuel, then I should be able to at least keep the main tank mostly okay. But if I do need to preheat, like if I'm in really cold temperatures, I don't want to have to deal with an electric heating pad for a 100-gallon tank. But this one should give me the ability to heat up 20 gallons a little bit faster. So my goal here, I've got this sitting upside down in its upper framework. Obviously it's not quite perfect just because there are things on top of this tank, so I'm going to lay this over on its side and then put the lower frame on top. But I want to put this down first, and then a piece of sheet metal on top of it. So I've got some leftover 18 gauge from the sides of the bus that I should be able to cut down to size just to cover up the majority of this heating pad. Probably going to cover it right over to here just before you get to where the electronics go into it. So we've got our wires going in here, and if you feel this, you can feel the wiring, especially right up here in the front. So I'll probably go to right about here. And generally I'm just doing that to try to help protect this from anything that might get thrown up at it, like rocks or something like that. So I can adhere this to the tank, and once that's done, I'll go ahead and measure for the sheet metal and get it cut and painted, and then I should be able to pre-drill these bottom sections here where this part of the frame is going to interface with the other. Once that's done, then I'll be able to mount this upper frame up underneath the bus, and I'll show you that part when we get to it. There we are. Set that down in there. Perfect. All right, just like so. Now, okay, just like that, I can go ahead and punch the holes through here, make sure they line up now. Do this on this side and the other, and then I'm ready to mount. Well, I was really hoping I'd be able to show you another completed piece of the project with this particular video. I know it's been a couple of weeks since I uploaded my last one, but work is just getting in the way. So let me show you where we are so far, and I think I'm going to have to call this for the video so I can get something up for you all to take a look at. So I'm kind of working on several different projects simultaneously, and maybe that's why I don't have anything actually done. But down here in the front, so this is just behind the driver's seat, there's the battery door right there, and we have our storage compartment here. This is the one where I installed the air system up front here, and there's going to be a holding tank in the back right where that's leaning up against, and I'll put the hydronic heater up in here too. But anyway, just to orient you on the bus. So this is the secondary fuel fill that I added. I know it's sitting down really low, but the tank is actually going to be a little lower than that up behind the skirt. So my goal here, I wanted to have a fill on the driver's side and something that was easy to get to. So this way I can fill from both sides. And what I'm putting up here, you've seen it in the video already, was that 20-gallon auxiliary fuel tank. So let me get down underneath here and show you what I'm dealing with. So here we are up underneath, and you can see I'm putting up the upper frame. So it hangs out right about here, and as we work our way back toward the back, it goes up to there. So there's our frame. So it's going to be bolted to that side piece of the toolbox back in the back there. And then I've got a piece of 5-inch aluminum channel up here, as well as another piece of 1 1/4 square tube. Originally I was just going to bolt it directly to the channel, but turned out it wasn't quite low enough, so I need to get it a little lower to allow fuel to flow when I'm filling it. So up inside here, that's going to go up there. I'm going to have plumbing, which I don't have installed yet, going between this tank and, I think you can see it right there. There's the main tank right there underneath that entire area. So 100 gallons as far as I can tell. But it has a secondary input on top up in the sending unit that I can get to from inside the bus. So I'm going to attach a set of pumps, one going each way, to allow me to transfer fuel back and forth between this smaller 20-gallon tank and the 100-gallon tank. I'll be using that partially to allow me to use this as reserve fuel. So if I ever run that low for any reason, or if I'm way out away from everybody, this gives me the ability to transfer fuel back in and hopefully get out of wherever I am. Also, I can use this as my heat source. I've decided I'm probably not going to do the diesel fire cooktop. It's just expensive, it's a lot to install, and from what I can tell, it sounds like they don't heat up very quickly. So I'm going to use an induction cooktop, I think. I should have plenty of electricity. But anyway, point being, this will only be supplying my hydronic heater, which is nice because those things pretty much sip fuel. So 20 gallons should last more than a month, easy. So yeah, the other thing that'll give me is if I'm in a situation where it's difficult to get to a diesel pump on the passenger side where the main fill is, I can potentially pull up to one on this side and at least fill 20 gallons in, and then I can transfer that into the main tank. So it's not perfect, but it does give me some extra capacity to work with. So I'm going to continue mounting that, and I'll continue to video this so you can see what's going on as I put this together, and also putting in the plumbing and the pumps and everything else. So that all still is to come. Then back here in the back, so this is the propane here. I'll pull that up, get it out of your way. So down in here, these are the propane cylinder mounts that I've got. This is the one that I built earlier in a previous video. And back here, let's see if I can move you around so you can see it. Okay, so back up in there, I think you can see the black framework. So that is going to be a 40-gallon water tank. What it's set up for is rain catchment and collection of environmental or dirty water. So my goal here, I've got a flange. Let me pull that for you. If I can find where I put it. So I've got these flanges. Basically, it's just a hose bib connection you've seen earlier in the video, and it has a watertight cap on the top of it here. I'm not relying on this to make sure the water doesn't drain out, but I'll show you that here in a second. So what we got, this is going to go up in here, and on the back I've got just an NPT to PEX. It's a 3/4 PEX, so it gives me the ability to put that up in there, bolt that on, and now I've got an intake for my tank. That'll run water directly in and down into the tank. I am going to put a vent on this one. I know I said earlier I wasn't sure if I was going to do that. That's part of the reason it's taking so long. I had to order that plumbing. Then on the other side, on the outflow down here, I'm going to run another line out the bottom of the tank, come across. It's going to go to that framework that's behind this side skirt, and I'm going to have a ball valve back there. So that way I can turn the water off without having to worry about relying on the fittings here to keep the water from draining out. And then I'll bring it out to this fitting here, which is another one of these, and that gives me the ability to then draw water off of this tank, transfer it through a pump and probably filter system, and put it into the main tank, which will be inside the bus. So this one is not going to have a heater on it because I only intend to use it when the weather's good. So that said, I obviously can add a heating pad to the bottom of it, so if I ever decide in the future that I want to be able to carry an extra 20 gallons of water during cold climates, I could potentially put a heater on it, but right now, not planning that. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. I'm also working on the rivets on this passenger side curtain. So again, you saw in a previous video putting up this rub rail, and now I'm working on finishing things off. So getting the holes drilled out up here for the remainder of the tie down for the side. I'll work my way down and then start putting the rub rail back in place. So yeah, there's a lot that's been going on kind of simultaneously here. It's part of the reason why I haven't gotten to a completed project as of yet. So I'm hoping sometime in the next several weeks we should have probably 3 or 4 videos all coming out in pretty rapid succession as these things get completed. So stick around, and I sure hope that what you're seeing here is useful to you. Obviously, if you'd like to take a break and watch them all when they're finished, then feel free to do so. But yeah, hopefully you get something out of all of this. So I will see you over the next horizon, and we'll keep working on these projects.